Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 419 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. How's it going out there? I hope this finds you healthy and happy and living the best life you can. And I hope you're breaking a few rules here and there. That's the way to an extraordinary life. All right, so one thing that growing up in a religion that requires strict adherence to rules and requires that you believe what they tell you without questioning it, and basically they require that because they say they're speaking for God, and if you question them, you're questioning God. So one thing that will do for you is if you have the courage to think for yourself in spite of being raised that way, you're not easily swayed by other people's opinions. And that's how I was raised. So I don't really look to other people for what am I going to think. I usually go with my gut, and that's done pretty well so far. You'll find I'm going to tell you a few times when it doesn't, but oftentimes when a lot of people and the majority of the people around us think one way, we feel like we should think that way too, or something's wrong with us, or we're afraid that they won't like us if we go against the grain. But that's kind of a dangerous path because the majority can be easily swayed. And if you go against your inner guidance system to follow the pack, you may feel like part of the crowd, but you lose respect for yourself a little bit every single time you do it. I grew up sort of bucking the system, and I haven't grown out of that, and I hope I never do. I don't look to other people for my opinions. Now, the exception to that is my husband because he's just so wise. So if he feels strongly about something, it's going to have me thinking extra hard about it, which is a good thing. Honestly, he has kept me out of trouble a few times. One time I felt pretty strongly about taking my doggies at the time to the off-leash dog park so that they could run free. They're King Charles Cavaliers, and they were really fast, but they weren't so great with other dogs. But in my mind, they craved being able to run free. So I thought, well, I'm taking them to the off-leash dog park. So as I'm loading them up in the car to go, Eric, my husband, starts getting ready as well. And I said, oh, are you coming with us? And he said yes, which I wasn't so excited about because he does tend to curb our fun. I mean that in a good way, you'll see. So off we go, and we get to the park, and I'm getting them out of the car, and I go to take their leashes off. And Eric says, what are you doing? And I said, well, it's an off-leash park, so I'm taking their leashes off. Well, he goes, it may be an off-leash park, but they aren't off-leash dogs because they don't listen to you, and you have no idea what other dogs are out here. So by this time, I knew that was coming, and I'm almost crying because I so wanted them to run free, and it wasn't looking like that was going to happen now that he was with us. So we start walking, and they're on these retractable leashes that are pretty long, and I'm really giving them a lot of leeway, so they're way ahead of us. And we come around the corner, and out of nowhere, here comes these 4 or 5 pit bulls, and they are off leash. And I already told you, Jack and Jasper are not good with other dogs. So they start to lose their mind trying to get these pit bulls. What are they thinking? Fortunately, they were on a leash. So I was able to rein them in quickly, and I grabbed and picked up Jack, and Eric picks up Jasper, and the pit bulls really weren't interested in them. They seemed friendly, but who knows what would have happened if they had been able to get to them like they wanted to, rabidly barking at them. So that was a crisis averted. And now in my mind, I'm like, okay, that was close. I'm glad they were on a leash. But then we round the next corner, and I kind of had them tied on the leash at this point because I have PTSD from the pit bull thing. But all of a sudden, like, they take off. Their leashes just go all the way out. And I realize, okay, this time they've spotted a pond. They love water. Now, it wasn't a nice blue glistening pond. It was a mud pit, a literal mud pit. Now, they love that water. And had they not been on a leash, they would have been neck deep in mud right now. And bonus, we didn't have towels. Not for that to happen. Second crisis averted. So by now I'm pretty upset with myself because were it not for Eric, I don't know that day would have ended well. It could have been really bad. And I can be pretty persuasive when I'm really trying, and Eric is never swayed if it means someone he loves could be in danger. Usually that's me, but this time it was our babies. So that made a big impression on me. I could tell you probably 10 of those stories where his level-headedness kept us, mainly me, out of trouble. So when you trust someone's advice, Listening to them is not thinking for yourself. It's actually thinking for yourself because you're evolving you. You're growing. You're expanding your mind. Now, growing up the way I did in a very religious family, I learned that thinking for myself got me in trouble with the religion because they wanted strict adherence regardless of what you thought. But I also learned quickly that you have to be able to think for yourself in order to truly respect yourself. Otherwise, people will run right over you. If you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything, right? That's a phrase from Alexander Hamilton, and I'm grateful for his wisdom. But on the flip side of that is Wayne Dyer's idea that one should have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing. Okay, I'm also drawn to that. Now, I have noticed that I can be swayed by something I'm reading or watching, as well as by someone I love or trust, like Eric, especially because I've seen how wise and logical his decisions are. So we can all be swayed in a way, and we are by what we take in. But I also notice that when I strongly believe something and someone comes at me with a different opinion on the topic, I notice at first sometimes it's not such a positive thought. So that's human. But I am I going to be open to really hearing a difference in opinion? I mean, really hear it? I've been actively working on that without getting upset. I mean, why would I even get upset? So recently, my friend Lena sent me a podcast episode. And remember, I've been working on listening to opinions that I don't think I agree with and just being open to it. And it's been kind of a fun adventure. we don't do that a lot anymore, I don't think. So my friend Lena sent me a podcast, and the title was on universal basic income. Okay, I'm not a big fan of that idea because I think it discourages people from wanting to work. But I am working on things. So I listened to the episode with an open mind, and it actually made me feel really good about what they're trying to do. And if done by the private sector, I could get on board with that in certain circumstances. So I came out of that seeing a different perspective, and it did soften my stance a bit. Now, I still don't think it would work large scale because someone has to pay for it. I didn't feel at all, though, the way I thought I would while listening to the episode. It expanded my mindset about it, and for that, I'm grateful. I now see that universal basic income as more as altruism than just enabling laziness, which is what I've thought in the past. So thinking for yourself doesn't mean you never change your mind. Thinking for yourself often involves an evolving of your ideas. I read a post once that said, if you don't look back at some of the things you used to believe and cringe just a little, are you even growing? I mean, if you've attached yourself so strongly to an idea that you identify with it, if you identify, like your identity is tied to that idea, now when someone has a different opinion, you kind of feel attacked. And I think that's where a lot of us are right now, especially with politics. And it's really due to algorithms because they dictate what we see so that we only see what we want to see and what we already believe. So that kind of makes our beliefs almost become a religion that requires that strict adherence because it's so ingrained in us, because that's all we're allowed to see. Now, fortunately, I grew up that way, and so I'm kind of sensitive to that happening. And when I notice that it's happening, I try to steer away from it. I'll give you a good example recently. January 6th, we all probably are aware of what that is. It's a hot topic for both sides of the aisle. Now, one side thinks that January 6th was an insurrection, and the other side thinks that it was basically just a group of of patriots peacefully walking through the Capitol with no real violence at all. Now, to be transparent, I was on the side of the peaceful patriots thought. And then I saw a couple of videos that they recently allowed out, and it was definitely more violent than I had thought, but definitely a lot less violent than the other side of the aisle wanted to say, which opened my eyes a bit because both sides are manipulating the story to fit their narrative. And this is why it's so important to only allow yourself to be swayed if you knowingly trust the source. And if all else fails, you have to go with your gut. But just remember, your strong beliefs, if they come from the news or the internet, may not be your beliefs at all. It just may be someone else's idea that you've heard over and over and over. We all have to be open to that idea anymore because of social media and the algorithms. So we're better off when we think for ourselves and when we allow our ideas to evolve as we learn new information. I mean, when did being able to listen to opposing ideas without having a come apart stop being a thing anyway? I was talking to a friend the other day, and she said when she was younger, Democrats and Republicans were friends, and you just had different ideas of how to make things better. I mean, that sounds nice, and I think we can get back to that. We just have to stop listening to unreliable sources whose main goal is to sow division and chaos, really just for money. I mean, we're going to have differences, but that doesn't mean we have to hate them for it. Heck, we have differences with our own selves. I'm reading a book right now that's on human behavior and why we do what we do. The author talks about the dichotomies that we each live with. So in himself, he says he has strong feelings about the need for gun control, but at the same time, he loves movies where guns play a big role. He loves to watch those violent movies where guns are front and center. This is a dichotomy that he lives with. I think we all have those. I know I do. I have strong opinions about things. I mean, I think it's extremely unfair for men to be allowed to play in women's sports. I think it's ridiculous we even entertain the idea. And I know people that are trans that I really like, and they probably think very differently from me in that area. That's a dichotomy for me. But just because they think a certain way doesn't mean I don't have other things in common with them. It doesn't mean I don't enjoy their company, because I do. We just don't align on that topic. My husband and I don't align on everything either, but that doesn't stop me from just being in love with him. I mean, heck, we don't align on shopping at all, and we aren't probably ever going to. I love shopping, and I could do it all day. He does not, and probably never will, and that's okay. We were recently in Nashville with my little sister and her husband, and our plan for the day was to go shopping before we went to dinner. And we were talking about our day, and Molly's husband, they did not seem too excited about going shopping with us, and so Molly was like, look, if you want to do something else, that's fine. And so her husband looked at Eric and said, would you rather go shooting instead of shopping? Eric got a big smile on his face, and he was like, yes. So Molly and I looked at each other and we smiled. It's kind of a win-win for everyone. They got to do something fun for themselves, and we got to spend however much time. Really, we spent an hour and a half in the fabric store picking fabric for her lumbar pillow. That would have never happened had they been with us. So you don't have to align with every single thing in order to love someone or even just like them. Now, it's more fun even and interesting when people do have different ideas from you. It adds spice and it adds growth, and we gotta have growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. My point of this episode is thinking for yourself is multifaceted. It doesn't mean you dig in and are hard-headed about your beliefs. It means you're open and interested in all ideas, but you use your inner guidance system to tell you which to believe and which not to believe. It's okay to stand for what you believe in as long as you truly believe it. It's also okay to pivot if you find that what you thought wasn't exactly right after all. Smartest people I know are willing to listen to opinions that do not align with theirs, and they're open to changing their mind if need be. And they also admit when they're wrong, but they don't mind standing up for what they believe in. And they are not afraid to follow their gut, even if it means the crowd turns against you. My challenge for you today is to be a free thinker. Just because the crowd or the majority says it doesn't make it true. Always look for your own inner guidance system when making big decisions. If your gut is sending up red flags, there's probably a reason. Don't ignore them. Having respect for yourself is more important than being liked by someone else. Share this with all the free thinkers in your life. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.